James Beebe. I'm the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Southern Indiana, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome you all to the first event to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Athenaeum, which I think is amazing. So thank you all for being here. It's a beautiful evening. We have a great panel here. I'm just going to do a couple of introductions and then move on. USI's relationship to New Harmony. Well, to me, as someone who's only been here for about 3.5 years, to me, USI and New Harmony are one and the same. They have a different history, but their histories are intertwined now. And so to me, USI and New Harmony's future is one and the same. They both soar together, they both work together. So to me, it's just an honor to be here. We're going to talk tonight about the cultural town. I'm going to go through a definition for you, just to kind of help you here. Right, so what is a cultural town? How can small communities achieve excellence and remain small? Well, I would argue as a historian that they are excellent because they are small. At a high level, they are towns that are dedicated to and recognized as having art and a rich history as a central feature to their cultural identity. Cultural towns generate a good portion of their economy, their existence, and their tourism from establishing a culture of the arts. They work to resist homogenization. They have a timelessness to them. They are a place of security. They are an intentional community. They are unique and authentic. They are a place to work and study. Does that sound like New Harmony? Doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. So we're going to have a discussion tonight about the future of New Harmony as a cultural town. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight Mike Lake, WFIE's Big David Mike, who has had a 50-year regional broadcasting history. So we're very honored, sir, that you're here with us tonight. So I'll turn it over to you.
Doctor, thank you. And folks, I'm absolutely honored and delighted. Some of you are old enough. You remember the politician Hubert Humphrey?
Yeah.
He used to go, I'm pleased as punch. Pleased as punch. I'm pleased as punch to be here tonight. In fact, I'm thrilled. This is first of all, what a wonderful venue, and congratulations to the community. As Dr. Beebe said, I have been in the community for the better part of almost 50 years. I wasn't aware of it until I came down. I'd heard of New Harmony, but boy, you are envied by so many communities in this part of the country, and you have just a marvelous cultural reputation. And like you, I'm anxious to hear just how great it is and what the future will bring from these very talented people that we have assembled. What I'd like to do is, first of all, something like this doesn't happen. I wish you could, if you would applaud the USI Foundation and, of course, historic New Harmony. How about a hand for these two? And now, if I may, let me introduce our illustrious panel. If you would hold your applause till they've all been introduced. We know Dr. James Beebe, the Dean of Liberal Arts at USI. Also with us, Miss Annette Buckland, retail entrepreneur and owner of the Muse retail store in New Harmony. We welcome Mr. Jeremy Ephraimson Family Fund, and a sponsor for the Athenaeum's 40th celebration. Mr. Fred Frazier is with us, President, Board of Trustees, Working Men's Institute. We welcome Ms. Docie Lewis, artist and cultural entrepreneur. Mr. Kent Parker, investor and philanthropist, and a sponsor for the Athenaeum 40 celebration. And if I may, I think he deserves a round of applause. He's a recent, or we'll talk a little bit more. Also with him is Dr. George Rapp, New Harmony Paint Out event, and a sponsor for the Athenaeum celebration. It is Dr. Rapp that, if you let him know how much we are proud of. Stockton, by Governor Holcomb, just about a month ago. Doctor, congratulations. We are also welcome to have another Kent Schutte, Professor Emeritus of Architecture and Urban Design at Purdue University. And completing our star-studded group from the Robert Lee Blaffer Foundation, please welcome Ms. Sherry Ann Stanley. How about a hand for our panel? Now, there are some questions that were put together by a distinguished group, and what we're going to do, they're directed to the panelists, and they will be asked actually one direct question, maybe more, but the panel is also welcome to comment, even though we will direct it at a certain individual. But to start off, to all of you, and Dr. Beebe, we'll start on your end. How did you come to know New Harmony, and was there a person or experience that motivated you to get involved?
Well, I'm from the 51st state of the United States, so I learned about New Harmony when I was in school in England. So I came to learn about New Harmony before I arrived in the United States as a utopian community, and I was always very excited about utopian communities. I became a historian and moved to the United States for 1 year in 1993, and for some reason decided to stay for the rest of my life. I sometimes regret that decision, but I'm happy to be here. So I knew about New Harmony as a scholar. So when I had an opportunity to apply to become the dean of the great university, the University of Southern Indiana, I was just overjoyed because I knew if I got the job that I could work with the people of New Harmony and in the community of New Harmony. So that to me was a huge draw to come to USI. So I knew about the town, having not visited it for many, many years. So when I came, I didn't really need any encouragement to come out here, if that makes any sense. However, if you've ever met someone called Katie Waters or Matthew Graham, they always encourage you to do lots of things, and they encourage me to spend a lot of time out here, and I have. And I just want to say thank you to both of them for encouraging me to come out here and get to know the people and the place. So I just want to say thank you to both of them. So that's how I got in.
That's wonderful. Just come right down the line, folks.
So I was going to talk about 4 books, a bunch of blankets, and a burial. That's what brought me here. The 4 books were 3 books written by my great aunt Cara, who was a great granddaughter of Robert Irwin. And they were, one of them was called The Beckoning Road, and the other was The Town of the Fearless. And these were read to me when I was a child, and I always thought, The Town of the Fearless, this is great. Where is that? What is that? And in 1960, I came here for the dedication of the Bridges Church with my mother as a guest of her distant cousin Kenneth Owen and Jane Laffer Owen. So about every 10 years, I would come here for something. I was commissioned as a young weaver and textile designer to hand weave 60 blankets for the New Harmony Inn in the early 70s. It took me all year to weave those blankets. I was pregnant at the time, and it got harder and harder to weave them. And then my mother died and wished to be buried in New Harmony, so I came for a burial. And then another book came along. My mother had written a book called Look to the Distaff, about 7 generations of Bowen women, and she didn't finish the book. And her wish was to have it published posthumously. So I took that project on, and I worked with some very talented editors, and a 7.5-pound book had to be delivered to New Harmony, and all of the research materials and the collection of letters and so forth ended up at the WMI. So I had another encounter, and then Jane Owen invited me as an artist in residence to come in the early, she invited me in 1999, but I didn't get here in 2003, and I came to write a book myself, a children's book called Momo, about a peripatetic mouse, and I bought a house instead. The book, maybe I'll finish the book sometime soon. Restored the house, bought a building on Main Street, restored that, and here I am.
I'm Annette Laughlin. I first came to New Harmony in 1977. I had moved to Illinois from Washington, D.C. I was a retread history major, and so I quickly found New Harmony on my own. It was like history, and that was the magnet. It evolved over years that I became a tenant in the antique showrooms, and then in 1990 purchased the antique showrooms, and so I've spent 29 years behind the counter as of June, as the owner of the showroom, or what's now called the Muse. Even though I was a retread history major and history attracted me, I recall reading in the AAA Auto magazine, Why People Travel. The number one reason why people travel was sporting events, which meant if we don't have a golf course or we don't have playing fields, we might be out of that league. The second one was shopping. And my 29 years behind the counter suggests that even though people are attracted by the historical and the ambience of our town, they want something to do when they get here. History was number 7 on that AAA list, which I think gives us pause, and we need to think about it in our current context.
My name is Ken Schutte, and I first came to New Harmony after I took a position at Purdue teaching the senior urban design studio. My time at Purdue, I say, is like a flood. I kind of crept under the door and kept rising. 45 years at Purdue. And one of the assignments that I inherited was they had already lined up New Harmony for a small town revitalization study before the professor who I replaced gave it to me. So we came, my wife and I, to New Harmony in the fall of 1981 and produced this document, Rehabilitation of New Harmony, a downtown revitalization study. Thank God they didn't do it. I would have been appalled if they actually built it. And then I met Mrs. Owen, and the Charlotte's Web was woven. In 1996, Purdue was going to tear down the second oldest building on campus, Entomology Hall, and I thought it would be great for landscape architecture. So I produced this little document called Completing the Circle, and I had the nerve to come down and ask Mrs. Owen for $1 million to make this Owen Agricultural Hall. She flashed her eyes in the pleasure boat and said, speaking of circles, and documents completing the circle, the relationship between Purdue and New Lanark and New Harmony and the gardens, and she said, speaking of circles, what do you know about labyrinths? And I said, well, you have one. She said, no, dear, I don't need that one. And of course, that led to the incredible experience of going to Chartres, being able to work with Jane and get that labyrinth built in a very short period of time. It was very stressful, but that was 23 years ago already. So it's time's going by when you're having fun.
You want me to use this one? Hi, I'm Sherry Ann Stanley, and your program probably says I'm here on behalf of the Blaffer Foundation, which is true, but I'm also a retired person from the University of Southern Indiana, and that's how I originally became involved with New Harmony. One of the almost instant positive developments after USI became a separate state university was the agreement that brought Historic New Harmony under the umbrella of the university. And some might not remember that the change was initiated by the Lilly Endowment. The Lilly Endowment had spent millions of dollars here on physical improvements, and they were ready to stop investing money in physical improvements and start urging Historic New Harmony to work on educational and tourist development. And so Gordon St. Angelo, who was the senior program officer for the Lilly Endowment at the time, and who had one of his assignments was Historic New Harmony, came to President David Rice at USI and initiated conversations with him about having Historic New Harmony move under the university's management. In some circles, that was something that was met with questions. D.W. Vaughn, who was the chair of Historic New Harmony Incorporated at the time, was not necessarily anxious to relinquish the management of Historic New Harmony to this new university. But we did work it out because the Lilly Endowment said, "Thou shalt," and we said, "We wilt." So anyway, that was my original involvement. I mean, I've been to New Harmony many times before, but I've never really been deeply involved in all of the issues that were here that we needed to think about and manage. And Mr. Vaughn was the consummate gentleman. And even though he was not happy about this change, David Rice and Byron Wright, who was our vice president for business affairs at the time, used to use me as the courier of documents to take contracts between the university and Mr. Vaughn because they knew he would not be ugly to me. He might have been strong with them, but he would not have been ugly with me because he was such a gentleman. Anyway, we did manage to get that management moved to to USI, and there was a promise, really, from the Lieutenant Governor's office through the Lilly Endowment that there would be an appropriation coming to the university to help with the operating revenues here. Well, it was several years before that appropriation really ever materialized. Cindy Brinker's sitting out here, and she can probably tell you what year we finally did that. And the university was already involved over here. Dr. Don Pitzer is up there taking pictures in the audience. But Dr. Pitzer had been doing research here for several years. And so, you know, we had things that we were interested in doing here, and we became interested in doing more as we were given the challenge to really build the educational component of Historic New Harmony. And also, I want to mention Josephine Elliott, who was our university archivist at the time. She was a New Harmony resident, and she had done so much research. So we had Josephine's expertise, we had Dr. Pitzer's expertise, and we had the entire community kind of looking to us to give a different kind of leadership over here. And I will just say that I wanted to mention, I think I mentioned Mr. Vaughn. Anyway, I just want to mention that I too was an old history major and a retread history major, so I was really interested in what we were going to do here. And so over the years, we became more and more involved and tried to bring a new vision from the university to Historic New Harmony, and I hope that we did that. I'm so thrilled with what has happened here because really the collaboration between Historic New Harmony and the New Harmony community and all of the people who are so supportive of what we do over here. So.
Thank you. I'm Fred Frazier. I'm here on behalf of the Working Men's Institute this evening. Can't really tell you exactly why I came to New Harmony because I've always been here. Raised here. I spent my early years in the Leave It to Beaver era, and New Harmony was typically that community. Decided as an adult to stay here because this is family. I didn't want to leave my whole family, and they're right here in New Harmony. We are one nice, big, happy family, most of the time. It was a pleasure to come back here and teach for a number of years. I spent 38 years in the local system. But as an adult, I saw this community with totally different eyes. And I began to have even more of an appreciation of the community and all of the things that went on in this community. It is just simply amazing, as you well know, because I see all kinds of volunteer faces sitting out there. It's just simply amazing the number of activities and events that go on in this community. And if you can't find something to do and enjoy and learn from here, you're not trying. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Ephraimson of the Ephraimson Family Fund. I started coming down to New Harmony when I was in law school, which was like the early 90s. I'd seen this article in Arts Indiana magazine, and it was about New Harmony, and it said that they were building condominiums like crazy. I think they're the 3 or 4 that you built. Like the whole town was going to change. If you want, it was becoming a veteran community of Evansville, and if you want, you better get down there quick before it all changes. But so I've been coming down, here since the early 90s, and obviously there's something, very special about this place, which we all know. And with that, these two guys have some serious notes, so I'm gonna pass this.
Hi, I'm Kent Parker. I just think, I'm going to eat this mic. Is that better when I get
Yes.
right there?
Yes.
Yeah. I can see there's two things we need to invest in with the money we're raising for this. One is that compressor behind this screen. Thank you for cutting that thing off. And the second is the sound system in this room. So my story is kind of two-phased, I think. I mean, I grew up in the area. I'm not from New Harmony. I grew up in the area 35 miles from here. But as a kid, I had parents and grandparents that used to bring me to New Harmony often in the 60s and 70s. And I fell in love with the place. I wasn't sure what it was about. I knew it was a mystical place, the labyrinth, and the old fort, and this eccentric lady from Houston, Texas, that was spending all this money doing crazy things in New Harmony. But I left the area in the early 80s, and I was gone for 20 years. And about 20 years ago, I was commiserating with my wife and said, you know, I'm a sixth generation Hoosier. I really would like to have at least a place to go to in Indiana. And we came back to Indiana. We were looking for some, yep.
Your mic is very switch mic. Can you use the other one, please?
Is that better?
Let's see this one.
Yeah. So there's three things: compressor, sound system, and microphone. So about 20 years ago, we decided to come back, and we were thinking about buying some farmland and building a kind of a retreat to come to occasionally. And my father gave me some advice and said, you know, if you bring your wife, who's not from Indiana, to Indiana, and you put her on a piece of property out in the middle of Indiana farmland, chances are that's not going to stick. And, we were looking at some property outside of this town. We came into town, and you know, I remembered what kind of from my childhood. I remember this was a special place, and so long story. You know, after 20-year absence of Indiana, we found a property here in town and established a place here. It was at that point, and I don't have a great story. I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer with an MBA, worked in business, entrepreneur, running public companies. I have no interesting artistic or historical or any bone in my body that would suggest that I can play guitar, sort of. But nothing to suggest that I would be enthralled with this place. But a funny thing happened once I moved here. I met a couple of people that were really kind of inspirational. One sitting next to me, so I won't embarrass him. The other was a lady named Jane Owen. And, you know, I noticed two things about Jane Owen right away. As a business leader and a business executive who's used to dealing with people with exceptional leadership skills, was number one, she had an amazing way to connect with people. I mean, I felt like I had this most special relationship with her. And chances are, all of you in the audience can relate to what I'm talking about in some way or shape or form if you ever met Jane Owen. She connected with everybody. And I was enthralled with that, but probably most importantly, she was in a business model that I was familiar with. And she spent time kind of mentoring and discussing with me these concepts around entrepreneurship. And I came to realize that ultimately, where I identified with Jane was, she's an entrepreneur too. She's a social entrepreneur. And that's pretty incredible. In fact, if you Google social entrepreneur now, you can find the definition on Wikipedia. I don't think you could 20 years ago. But it's someone who, you know, ideates, invests, and carries through with ideas that perpetuate history, the arts, social community, environmental causes. So it was a different form of entrepreneurism, and I was blown away, and so it converted me. And I was going to California, I was still working. I had a place out there I was going out every week, but I'd come back here, and I would recharge, and I would reground. And I started to learn what it was to be part of a community, and what it was to be, someone that could help move a community forward. And it was a pretty good feeling. So I'm delighted to be in New Harmony. I'm very delighted to be on the stage with these kind of people that have helped, shape the community. So it's a true honor.
Thank you. I'm George Rapp, and up here. I was born here. And so you asked when we first got interested. Actually, I was born in the location the Legion home is now, so I tell everyone I was born in the Legion home, but I really wasn't. There was a house there at that time, and a big front porch. I do remember that. My father had rented it, he was in schools. But I don't remember this clearly, but my mother had been in labor for about 12, 14, 15 hours when there was a Dr. Fitzgerald. And he said, I think we're going to have to use forceps and take the baby, you know. So according to my dad, and I have to admit, I don't remember this well, they put the forceps on my head, and the doctor started pulling on the forceps, and my dad started pulling on the doctor. And luckily, he had the forceps on just right, so I don't have a flat face. And anyway, as I grew up, I was exposed in New Harmony to very high ideals, like the accountants, Rat, Nolan, taught this early, and then theatrical people, the One Sons, and the various relatives you talked about that have been here. Then Jane came, and I don't remember her coming so well. The only thing I remember is all the ladies talking about her running around in sack dresses with no shoes on, and they couldn't understand why someone that wealthy would do this. But she was a great influence, I think. More later when I came back, and I think Dr. Fitzgerald, who was the doctor then, my dad used to take me out to his grave at Crown Hill and tell me what a good doctor he was. It may have influenced me a little, along with other things, to become a doctor, because he had a good impression of this doctor. Later, I think that our teachers and coaches here were excellent. No, can you hear? Yeah. Everyone tell me if I'm not talking into it. We're very good. In fact, all of them had a master's degree, and the school became very good, and our music departments were particularly good with Norma Eaton teaching, and Geneva Hall, and Melvin Blake and people. Then I got off and busy, and the main thing I was trying to be is the best orthopedic surgeon in the world. I mean, I just really worked with it. That's all I hardly did. And some way I got appointed to the board of the Hoosier Salon by a fellow that had been treasurer and a development officer for the IMA in Indianapolis. Became interested in art, and I sort of like Kent. We were supposed to open that in 2 months, and I called and I thought, how am I going to open this thing? And we don't have anyone. Well, we got a very good director, our first director, and I called one of my old girlfriends, Ann Scarthia, and she said, well, you know, we have a senior group at Tri-Campus, and we need a project. That might be a good project for us. So I had 25 volunteers. And I want to mention, and Fred mentioned this too, and Kent, the volunteerism in this town, I think is the best of any town around. And I think if we did a record of the United States, because they volunteer every weekend, people do, and they help you. I came in tonight, and they helped me carry my luggage up to the second floor. I think if we took percentage of people living here, like 850 or something, and what percent volunteer, I'm sure it's higher than about any town in the United States. It's certainly higher than Evansville or Indianapolis or Gary or Houston. And I think that's what I love about coming back here, is the cultural background of the town. and the volunteerism and the people you meet here, like Jeremy, and the other people from the university. I'm very glad that. So well, I keep thinking, every time I think of Interlochen, Michigan, this is sort of out in the middle of Michigan. Two people started Interlochen in the middle of a bunch of pine trees. Now, we're not in the middle of a bunch of pine trees here. And I think we have a good start. I always still think, I wish that while we had a boatload of knowledge here, they would have started a university. Because universities would stay with you, and it would have probably been like the Yale of the Midwest or Harvard or something, because at that time there was no school like that around here. There were little schools still developing with maybe 6 or 8 professors in them, but not very many. Well, that's it, and I always loved the town. And I might mention too, can't mention, his wife loved it. And I've been lucky that way, because Peggy absolutely loves New Harmony too. Now, we're both getting old, and so getting around is harder. But I was lucky that way, because if I hadn't married someone that wouldn't be in Indianapolis or Chicago, it wouldn't have worked out. I used to come down here every week to see my dad, but just for one day. But it's a great place to come to and visit with good people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to answer all of tonight. This question is directed to 3 of our distinguished panelists. Kent Schutte, I'll have you start it off, then Dosie, and then Dr. Beebe. The question is, what qualities do you think make New Harmony unique as a cultural town? Kent?
Well, I have a very specific viewpoint. I believe we're unique and authentic. The residents are all unique and authentic. I look out here and my God, you're all so cool. And it's about, so many of them care about gardens. I'm not talking about lawns where I came from, but real gardens. And Jane really believed in taking a positive impact of nature that could move a secular site into the realm of a spiritual landscape, a sacred place. And you have so many here. You have the Roofless Church, Tillich Park, Cathedral Labyrinth, Church Park, Carroll's Garden, and many private gardens that you all take care of on your own. So that really was and is one of the things that I think makes New Harmony so unique, is the real presence of an anchor in nature and appreciation of nature.
Everybody's already said the things that are in my notes. I don't want to repeat all of that. I'm going to get very personal and say, for the first 7 years I moved here, I would wake up every morning and just rub my eyes and say, how can I be in all this beauty? I lived in Connecticut, which was also beautiful, rolling farm country, but it wasn't curated the way this town is. And, well, I won't say after 7 years I woke up and I thought it's all over now. It wasn't, but my wonder matured into better take responsibility for some of this. You can't just be a user of the beauty. You have to give back in some way. So I engaged a little more at that point. But my angle is still the beauty. I'm a designer. If I don't feed on beauty, I can't do my work. And so the quiet, the beauty, the friendships with all kinds of people I would never be friends with in a million years, I'm very good friends with, because we're on the ark together. And that enriches our lives to have such a broad community. And such a small community, we have no choice. We have to get along. We have to share a vision. And so I celebrate being at that table. And speaking of tables, every 7 years or so, 7's a good number, we get newcomers. And we've had a batch of newcomers that are totally fantastic. And a week ago Saturday, we had a meet in the street dinner. 250 people showed up, maybe 300. We all brought dishes. We all sat together. We ate together. It was magical. That's half the town. Where do you get that? So those personal things are what make New Harmony special to me. And I'm going to make a shameless plug. I just had my first art show in 30 years. I had an art show once upon a time in California at the Gallery of Contemporary Art, New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art. It was a fabulous experience. Gary, are you here? You know, you were terrific to work with, so professional. Where do you get that in a town like this? It was just a beautiful thing. All my friends turned out, people bought stuff. I just am so thrilled that I'm turning 70 next month, and I'm going to be here for it, and for the next decade. You know that I've made it this far and landed. The music stopped, and I'm in a chair. So, there you go.
Thank you, Josie. Dr. Beebe?
I don't know how you can follow that, so I won't bother really other than say that as a historian, as a scholar, I will say that what makes New Harmony unique as a cultural town is in part its history. To me as a scholar, the fact that there were 2 utopian communities here within a short span of time, I think you can't get away from that. I think it's imbued in the town. But as a historian, what I like is that New Harmony makes it unique is even though history is everywhere, the town is not trapped by its past. That it's still a living town. If you think of somewhere like Colonial Williamsburg, which is also a historic cultural town, it's sort of trapped by its past, and it doesn't really live. This town lives, and it has warts and all. I mean, I'm sure not everything's perfect here. I'm sure, and it shouldn't be. There's no perfect place in the world, and certainly not in the United States. You know, to me, that's part of it. And what makes it unique? One of the things that makes it unique for me, as someone who lives in Evansville, unfortunately, and not in New Harmony, is there's a moment where you drive. I'll speak quite candidly. There's a moment that you drive to New Harmony from the west side of Evansville, and you get into, I think it's Wadesville, and you get to that intersection where you can go off to Poseyville, and for me, there's a weight that comes off my shoulders. Where you turn that left turn, and you go over that little hill, and you know New Harmony is almost here. And there's something, and that means there's something about this place that does something. Well, it does it to me. And it did to my 3-year-old children. I brought them to Indiana, 3-year-old twin girls. I took them to New Harmony for the first time before they turned 4, and it was the happiest they had been since they moved to Indiana. They walked in the street as little kids, and they felt happy. And there's something about that. There's something that you can't put words to about what makes it unique. And I think that's what it is. It's something that you can't describe. But it's here, and I think everybody feels it. I certainly do.
Very good. Again, wonderful panelists. We appreciate that. This next question is directed again to Kent Schutte. Kent, you'll be our leadoff man. Then Fred and Annette, if you will answer, why is it important to you personally to be in this community called New Harmony?
Well, I think we're in a really unique point in the history of the town. I think we're on the verge of amazing opportunities. One of the things, our visitors. I mean, we talked about the volunteers, but we're really seeing an uptick in visitorship in the recent year, and a lot more families on the street than we've seen before. So I'd say our many visitors. You know, the New Harmony Inn has 80 rooms. We've added in the last 5 years an additional 80 overnight rooms in New Harmony. through inns, Airbnbs, house rentals. We've doubled the capacity of the town to absorb cultural tourism without having to build a Holiday Inn or Travel Lodge or some cookie cutter. So there's a very good example of how we have adapted growth to how do you achieve excellence and remain small and spread that economic benefit out among the citizens of the town and not some outside corporation. So I think thinking that way, whether we know we're thinking that way, is really the direction we need to continue to think about.
Fred?
Probably a number of reasons I could cite. Is this on?
Yes.
Again, as I said earlier, I've lived here my entire life, and I feel like I can now continue to contribute at my pace. I'm not working, I'm retired, and I can spend the time doing the things that are important to me, that I think will be beneficial to the community. Going along with the weight being lifted, the Governor Holcomb, was at the Working Men's Institute in July and presented road monies for this part of the state. And after the program was completed, he talked with us for a little while, and one of the comments that he made was, when I come to New Harmony, I feel like I can breathe again. And I thought, that was pretty prophetic. To think that folks notice the difference that is here. Been here my whole life, kind of take it for granted. But I'm learning to see it through those different eyes again. And it just continues to amaze me. And thank you for all that you continue to do. The Working Men's Institute continues to strive to provide programming that will interest the community. I'm very pleased to say that the lecture series has grown considerably in the last 5 years. A number of other lectures and events throughout the year. Again, check our website. If you are not finding something to attend there, you're not looking very closely. So it just amazes me that I can go and do anything I want, any night of the week, basically, and learn or enjoy or participate. So that's why I stay in New Harmony.
Josie? Or Annette, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I think it's me. I think because you can have an impact. I grew up in a small town, smaller than New Harmony. And we used to say you didn't have to have a good voice to be in Glee Club, you didn't have to be an athlete to be on the football team. All you had to do was show up. And I think that that spirit is still strong in New Harmony. You can volunteer and feel like you can contribute. You don't have to be the smartest bird in the room. You don't have to be the most talented. You just have to provide energy and enthusiasm. I can remember, and I think you can achieve things. I can remember when Dr. Rapp came to the Business Association and talked about having something called Paint Out, which was kind of a strange term. And that event has brought such vitality to our spring here in New Harmony. And I like it. It is a cultural activity. We have artists, but I also like it because it brings in artists of all income levels. It is not an elite activity. In this case, it is people who have talent, but it welcomes all incomes to New Harmony, and it has become the most important spring event we have, I believe. The other thing that I like about this community, and I think is important, is the Business Association. Now, we are not a chamber of commerce of 300 people paying big dollars. We are like all small businesses with the emphasis on small. I'm always kind of amused when they talk about small businesses under so many million. Well, you know, get real here in New York. But it is an organization of the business people. We are basically just 2 streets of business people, put on 4 major festivals, and a lot of that volunteer work that so many people have been talking about.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our next threesome will begin with Jeremy, if he'll kick it off, followed by Dr. Brett, and then Sherry Ann. And the question for you, what aspect of New Harmony do you most admire? Jeremy?
Okay, I'll skip over the obvious, like this is a special place thing. I like, you know, the walkability or the golf cart ability of New Harmony. I always have to remind myself, because in Indianapolis, you have to give yourself a 20 or 30-minute head start. Like, oh, wait a minute, every place in town is only 1 minute away. And so I like that. And then I think also what goes with that is like the, you know, I think what kind of what Kent Schutte was saying, the large amount of public spaces, like the green spaces. You know, so it's a great place to just kind of walk around and golf cart around. Who's
Dr. Brett?
Well, I like the friendliness of New Harmony. I remember when Peggy was first down here, a dog ran by and Ernie, my younger brother, said, "Hi, Joe," or something. And Peggy said, "Do you know the name of all the dogs in town?" He said, well, yes, it's a small town. We know everybody. And, it's sort of like when you live in a big city, you might not even know the person next to you, and you make an effort. Because, you know, you're busy. There's so many people. You're busy with your thing, with your music program and your whatever you like, the Scottish Nights, all of us. And your social life would go about there. You know everyone in there, but you don't know your neighbor. Here, you know your neighbor. And the other thing I think about this town is I like the definition of philanthropy as volunteerism for the public good. With that definition, everyone can be a philanthropist. And in New Harmony, everyone almost is a philanthropist because they volunteer for something. They don't only volunteer once, they volunteer this weekend and next weekend and next weekend, and that's the reason we can have these shows that Annette talks about various things. And an example, the Hoosiers Lawn in Carmel. Now, Carmel's a good town, good people. They have volunteers coming to riot hospitals right now. But they didn't get any volunteers in the art gallery build. Well, most art galleries, 95% fail in the first 3 years. So it's not a good place to bet on making money. But here, ours has gone 20 years, strictly because, number one, the gallery director is underpaid, unless he likes it. And the volunteers run it, and we get, everyone comes and understands that. And it has fun. And Kent and everyone, I think, so that's.
Very good. Thank you, George. Thank you. Sherry Ann.
Thank you. I most admire New Harmony's ability to evolve as a community. And I've been watching, I'm not going to say from afar because I live in Evansville because I'm over here all the time, but I've watched this community from the time I got deeply involved back in 1985 until now, and I've watched the community evolve. I've watched the business associates really take great leadership in the community. And I remember when Mrs. Owen died, everyone said, whatever will we do in our community now that our visionary leader is gone? And you know, she would be so proud of what has happened in this community because people just, they understood that they needed to give leadership themselves and not just rely on one person. And so I've kind of watched this community take wings, new wings, I guess I would say. And the artist group, Dozie, that you have built through the Blackford Foundation and other interests has taken hold. So the cultural interests are growing, and the people, there are people who have moved here, like Kent and others, who when I heard that they moved here, I thought, well, how did they know about New Harmony? And of course, I asked every one of you, how did you know about New Harmony? Well, they were attracted. I mean, the sense of community here is a real magnet for people who want to be a part of that. And I think New Harmony's ability to evolve and keep that sense of community intact and become who you have become is just fabulous.
Sherry Ann, again, how are they doing well, folks? Huh? Very well. Okay, our this question's directed to Kent Parker. Kent, if you'll start, followed by Fred and Josie, if you'll be our third person. The question is, what is New Harmony's biggest threat? What is the one thing you wish you could change or could have changed the outcome of?
That's a great question. Well, let's start with natural sciences. The biggest threat. Naturally, we live on the Wabash River, and we're in the Wabash Valley seismic zone. And, you know, that's a threat. And in my mind, you know, it's not flooding. That's not the threat. Mackey Island was formed in 2008. How many of you witnessed that either in person or on the television? Anybody? So go down the Wabash. It's the last bend in the Wabash. It changed course in a matter of hours. And in fact, it did it twice. It changed course twice over a year's period. But in both times, it was a cataclysmic event. And so I think that the river is the biggest threat that we face, and it's as a physical, natural threat, and it's not to be taken lightly. So our vigilance on managing the south bank of the bend here, it needs to continue. Going out and measuring, it's not that very deep right now. That's not really, that's not really what we have to fear. We have to manage the erosion on a continual and gradual basis. And even then, it may not be enough, but we've got to do what we can on that front. But in terms of what I think about the most, I never really lived in a community before New Harmony. I was raised on a farm in rural Indiana. And then, in my career, I lived in places. I lived on places, is what I like to say. I lived on suburbs. I lived on big cities. And I just consumed them. I think Dosie made a point about that earlier. And here, you're part of a community, and you've heard others talk about that's really important. But as someone who was raised in Indiana and has an affinity for rural America, jump in a car and drive 100 miles in any direction on 2-lane highways through places that have a green sign with a name on them that was a town. And folks, that's humbling. For someone who was raised out in the country here and has family members in towns like Buckskin, Somerville, and Mackey, and of course I was Snake Run. Griffin, yeah. Look, economic sustainability of our community is really an important issue. And it's, for someone like myself, given my background, is, how can you contribute? Well, I think a lot about and have been very keen to be involved in trying to drive microeconomic sustainability in our community. I think that's important. I think it needs to augment the philanthropic activity. And without having real economic sustainability on top of philanthropy and volunteerism and grants and all the good things that help make our community special as it is, we can't remain a real community. So for me, what does that mean? It means that people make free choices to be in a business or to consume from a business, and everybody benefits without anybody interfering with them. And that's an important element of our town. Being able to buy groceries, being able to go to the drugstore, being able to have meals, being able to live here, to really live here comfortably is really important. So I think about that a lot. Some of the things I've been involved, with George, we bought the Harmony House Cinema and try to manage that, to keep that going. Now we're managing that building to try to keep it in the community. Jeremy mentioned Church Street Commons. I worked with a couple of other investors 10 years ago to build some houses, and then during the bicentennial, we did the bicentennial house. Those are all things that are outside of the confines of really being philanthropic. They're more about trying to drive commercial viability by investing in the community. So for me, that microeconomic sustainability is a really important issue.
Fred?
To build on that, I really think our greatest threat is losing our sense of community. I've never seen a problem come up in New Harmony that as a community, we couldn't get groups together and solve that problem. As a community, we laugh together, we cry together, we celebrate together. We do all of the things that are necessary to keep New Harmony alive. And I think that's our greatest threat. We can never lose the human element that has that desire to keep New Harmony alive. I think the one thing that I would like to see changed, if it were possible to go back a few years, was, I believe it was May 21st, 2012, the last day for New Harmony School and the day the bridge was closed. I think those were two devastating events for this community. To stop and think, even though they were horrible, you know, people, the community's gonna die, we just can't survive this, but look around you. We did survive it. We've adapted. We have continued to strive for the excellence that is present in everything that is done by this community. So, yes, I would change it. I would keep the school going and keep the bridge open, but we're gonna survive in spite of that. And I think that's a great tribute to the community. So let's keep up the good work.
Josie?
So number one on my list was the river. But that's taken, so the next threat, aging out of the population. It's not just the population, it's the aging out of our trees, our infrastructure, our gardens, our houses. And unless we get young people in to pick up the mantle, we're just going to go into entropy. Or, you know, we interest people in giving grants to revive the trees, the houses, and so forth. Young people are the lifeblood. We don't have that many children running around in the streets. A few, but we lost one really good family this year with 3 absolutely extraordinary children. And when I asked them why they were leaving, they said, we don't want our children to grow up in Mount Vernon. We live in New Harmony, and they have to go to school in Mount Vernon. So I agree with Fred that when we lost the school, we lost a generation of young people who might come along and populate, take our places. So my regret, if there is one, or what I would do differently, I can't roll back time, but had I been a young mother here with my children, I would have fought to replace that school with a smaller school, a one-room schoolhouse of some kind. Every retired person here is a professor of something. We could have a home school that would blow them away. We know so much, and we could have an education system that's outside the box, should we choose to do that and have young people that needed that education. So on my wish list is something like that. But I'm going to end my little words here with a quote from E.O. Wilson, one of my favorite entomologists and futurist and environmental champion. It's about existential threats. We're drowning in information while starving for wisdom. The real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And it is terrifically dangerous, and it is now approaching a point of crisis overall. Until we understand ourselves, until we answer those huge questions of philosophy that philosophers abandoned a couple of generations ago, Where do we come from? Who are we? Where are we going? New Harmony's a place you can ask those questions, and you might get an answer. But we do have to replace ourselves with those young, intelligent, bright lights who are burning out in front of their little boxes. Jobs that are absolutely mind-deadening. Even I, who supposedly am a hands-on artisan, spend 10 days in front of my computer, 10 hours a day often in front of my computer. We need to invent a future that includes all of the arts, creativity, community. We already have it. We don't have to invent it here. We may have to sell it to the burnouts and get them here and have houses for them and a grocery store to shop in or a co-op or grow our own food or, you know, all of the utopian visionary things that we like to imagine we actually need to do, or we're all gonna fizzle out. So, anyway, that's it.
Josie, thank you, yes. I've got one more question for our esteemed panelists, and then, if you'd like, we'd like to open it up to any questions you might have for any one of our panelists. But the last question is directed to Kent Parker, Dr. Beebe, and Jeremy, if you will wrap it up. Your question is, what are your hopes, plans to continue New Harmony's excellence as a cultural town? Kent?
Two-pronged on my part. One is through philanthropic efforts. When I retired 7 years ago, my family decided, we set up a foundation, a small foundation. I was impressed. Jane Owen told me, I think, that she started the Blaffer Foundation with $250,000 of Exxon stock. And I thought, wow, that seems like a small amount given what it's worth today. But maybe, you know, Exxon's done really well, I suppose. But that inspired me, and I felt like, you know, create a nest egg there that could be used to donate to nonprofits in town is important. So that's one step, and we'll continue to do that. But the other thing that I'm very interested in is something that's kind of taking a bit of what I saw Jane Owen do with what I call social entrepreneurism. And so I call this notion capitalistic philanthropy. And the notion is this, is that, you know, if you've got, let's say you have $1 million and it's sitting in the bank drawing 3% interest, and you're giving the bank 3%, can you invest that in things in your community that will yield 3%? You don't have to give the money away. You can do things that are for-profit. You can help things that are for-profit. And it's no different than letting the bank hold your money. You're letting your community hold the money. And so that's the second way that I think that there's opportunity for us in town. And that would allow, you know, to build residential housing or to invest in commercial projects, perhaps alternative energy. There's other things that could be done in our community in the future outside of just, you know, giving money to nonprofits that might help this microeconomic sustainability of the community. And that's very interesting to me.
Dr. Beebe?
Well, I would say, as a representative of the university, I would say one of the things that I would like to see is that really close collaboration continue and be enhanced between the university, which is a public university, having a relationship with a town. That is almost unheard of in the United States. You may have private, small liberal arts colleges that have a relationship with the town in which they exist, but to have a public university, a very young public university still, I think we sometimes forget that USI has not been around that long, have a really close relationship. We have a lot of young people at our university, and there are a lot of opportunities for students to interact with the members of the community, but people from the community come to the university. So I think that's one of my hopes, is that there's a stronger collaboration there. And you know, in my college, that's happening, I believe. I believe, you know, New Harmony is so special that my hope will be for the future that it embraces its uniqueness and supports and attracts people from all walks of life to the town. And I heard about the school, and I think, you know, that is something that you know, makes it difficult to attract younger people to the town. And so that, my hope would be to look at that, ways that you can attract people to come to the town. That is a big issue. But I think you can do that. And I think it's a special place. And the hope would be that it develops and changes with the times, but doesn't become fascinated with the latest fad at the time. So stay true to it, to its past, and also embrace but not become consumed by the present and future.
Thank you, Doctor. Jeremy?
Yeah, I think kind of similar lines, but what I really think is that like we need as a community to intentionally be a friendly place for children. Like having come here with my kids, in a certain way, this is a great town because you can wander all over and yada yada. But like when you're trying to find some place to eat with like a 4, 5, 6-year-old, it can be pretty difficult. Also, I know Dan Mason talking about like having a Montessori school. I think everyone else is saying that too, that you need some kind of school here locally so kids can go to school here. I think affordable housing is really important, and it might even be something that somebody, you know, has to subsidize, but it sounds like there's kind of this gap in, you know, housing here where we want these families to come here with kids, but there's nowhere for them to live. And so I think that's kind of important. Like I have all kinds of ideas about this. Like, but I was reading this book called, I think it's called The Angel and the Serpent, which was written in the 60s. And it's kind of what everyone says about resiliency here. Like back in that book, he's like, and the population is aging, and the young people aren't coming back, and you know. And I guess we are down like 200 in population since then, so it's not perfect, but we're still here, you know. So I guess that's a hope for the future.
Yes, Ken.
I'd like to make a comment about this. We're really not isolated anymore. When you think about small towns, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that, we don't have this. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, my wife wanted to buy a new quilt for her bed and breakfast. We could have walked up and down Fifth Avenue and gone in every store and looked at quilts, and we never could have looked at as many quilts as we looked at on Amazon Prime and order it and have it show up the next day and have our guests. I mean, the world is available to small towns now. You're not, if you want olives from Italy, you can have them tomorrow. If you want salmon from Seattle's Pike Place Market, you can have it in the morning. It's all coming at us. So I think my fear is that the community needs to develop a growth strategy that embraces the value of achieving excellence and remaining small, because I believe there has been, in the last 4 decades, a great migration to cities. I think you're going to see in the next 4 decades a great migration out. And we better be ready to figure out how we want that to come here, because we'll have no control over it if we don't get in front of it. And I think it's a very powerful force. Josie, I will make one other comment. We are working on being a sabbatical town. You have an artist coming with the New Harmony Project. We have Luke Randall returning next week for 30 weeks. Many of you might know who he is. He will leave the gates of the Rufus Church. We have a constant flow of people who want to come back. They want to come back and be artists in residence, and I just think that that is moving towards being a sabbatical town. I'm done.
I have one concern, and it's kind of, I guess because I am a retailer, I'm a very practical person. But there is a little bit of an elephant in the room in terms of New Harmony, and it is our town council. I look out in the audience and I see only one current councilman. I see 2 candidates for the council. I think as we partnership and work to develop, that isn't working as successfully as I think it potentially could. And I think as we look at growth, I think our present town council has addressed issues of infrastructure, but I think the idea, the concept of how we develop what we're looking at down the road, or future vision, I think that's a little weak. And I think that is a concern, and I think we have an election coming up. I'm going to sound like a politician, and I'm not running. But in November, I think we have some serious choices to make as a town.
Before we open to the audience, any other comments? You'll have a chance again, maybe to mark up what they asked. Folks, how about it? You've got some wonderful. Oh, give yourself a hand. This is a wonderful opportunity. It's the start of a 3-day celebration. There'll be some wonderful seminars and discussions tomorrow. What's one thing that you'd like to ask any one of these fine panelists? Does anything come to mind? Yes.
A question for Dr. Beebe. What steps would you take to bring more USI students to New Harmony? Is there the possibility that this could be a rural campus option for international students?
Well, I won't use a microphone. I would say that there's a lot of opportunities. What I would like to see is some partnerships with the town. For example, we lack studio space for art majors. I would love to see if we can develop a BFA program, which we're trying to do in art and design, that we have spaces for students to be out in New Harmony, doing their art. You know, art brings lots of people together, and obviously it's good for the economy, but I think that's a perfect opportunity. International students should be out here. It's a wonderful place. Faculty need to be bringing their students out. So we do that in liberal arts. We are probably the most engaged college at the university with this town, in terms of research projects for students, in terms of internship opportunities. So everything, they will have the biggest support of me that you can have, is that because, well, I come from a very small village in England that my family's been there for 1,000 years, since before the Norman Conquest. And people still know what I'm up to, even though I left there in 1988. So I understand the importance of a small town, and the fact of it's a village, and the fact that you have this university close by really is a huge plus for New Harmony. So we will do everything we can to bring students out, and we do all the time. Happy to do it, sir. And what's your name?
Ben.
Ben. Okay. Thank you.
Then I will say that the university makes an effort to bring students here for orientation programs, but those are mostly one-day programs where they come and they learn about the community, and those are mostly our student leadership groups who come, but we do make an effort to subsidize that and to bring them here so that they know about New Harmony and are attracted to New Harmony. So we can do that. And Dr. Jones, you can chime in here, and Leslie, but we've looked at doing programs here, residential programs, but we run into the question of housing. You know, if you're going to bring students over here and they're going to live here for a whole semester, how do you house them? And then, it's a 27-mile commute to campus, and so, do you run them back and forth for the core courses they need, and they get their specialties here? So those are all dilemmas that we have grappled with, and I don't know if you all want to chime in and say more about that, but the university is aware that the more students that we expose to New Harmony and have learned about New Harmony, the more opportunity we have for them to catch the magic, as we say.
So I will actually say that I'm standing here right now because I was exposed to New Harmony through USI, through Katie, through Connie, through Matthew, and that's why through my corporate career, we flew from San Francisco to come here for long holidays. That's why when we had the opportunity, we came here. And so I will tell you, and Leslie and I have had this conversation many times, that once this wonderful celebration, and I hope you all come the next couple of days, is in the books. The next is a vision, and everything that was said on the board right now, we have to force a vision. If we don't know where we're going, we can't make it happen. And from a university, from a historic New Harmony perspective, believe me, we're defining it right now. I want people to be able to use the cards that they pay for food at the Yellow Tavern or wherever else in town, right? It has to happen. Relative to housing, we have to solve that, even if it's tense. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. I don't know, I was taught art at a Quonset hut for about 10 years.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So I'm a newbie in town, so I'm daring to say some things. So I'm basically from the Bay Area. I've spent most of my adult working life in the Bay Area. And I came here because of Josie, and I've known Josie for over 30 years. And we talked a lot about, well, I agree with a lot of what she said. And I looked up the 10 top ingredients for a successful small town, and number one is food. And if you can tell, I'm a foodie. And I started really trying to explore that idea. And having been in the Bay Area, I'm very familiar with Alice Waters. And the idea of farm to table, bringing in new chefs, you know, that might be something we as a community should try to figure out how to reach out and make that happen. Because this is a terrific opportunity for a lot of young chefs who are trying to make a mark for themselves. So that's one thing. And I will just say tiny homes the second, and that's it.
Tiny homes.
Angie, did you have a question?
I did, now I got a different response. My first response is the housing thing. Long time ago, when they were doing up community house number 2, it did occur to friends of mine that why couldn't that be made into a dormitory for visiting students? Yeah, I'm loud enough. Okay, so if dormitory number 2 had been made into a temporary housing for visiting students, it would be brilliant use of the facilities we have instead of a nearly empty museum. I don't want to criticize the Indiana State Museum. They've done a beautiful job in restoring it. But we have these things. We just turn them into museums all the time. And then the food, I sure work hard on that. I help run the farmers market, and it's uphill every day. And so I want to see all of you there next summer, every Saturday.
One second, I might have a comment on the dormitory.
Go ahead.
Exploring the housing.
Who wants it?
Connie?
No.
I have a question. I know several of you mentioned getting young people into town, and you mentioned the issues, but I'm just curious if any of you have any ideas, any quick ideas, maybe they're not even thought out, about how you get those young people, like me, I'm only 25, into this town for the long term.
I have an idea. How about a fast rail system between USI and New Harmony? Just a thought.
How about Uber just in town?
Uber?
So, you know, the question about how do you get young families here, at the sake of being a pragmatic thinker and saying something that may be controversial, like the Dollar General, good or bad? It's great. You know, I don't think the community, many of us didn't think that before it came. To answer your question, if you want to get a young family here, not only do they need a house that costs less than $150,000, they need a place to go buy diapers. Right? They need a place to go buy food that they could buy at a grocery store or Walmart as cheaply as there as they can here. I mean, we've got to make our community livable. And we don't have a family restaurant the kids can go to eat at on a Friday night after 8 o'clock. That families, affordable restaurants that families can afford, right? So creating this sustainable, this economic sustainability ideas around affordable housing and the services that go with that sometimes require us to think in terms of a compromise. Like when we built the Bicentennial House, we thought we could build that house for under $200,000. And guess what? You can't. Now, I had Kurt Schmidt do the kitchen and woodwork. It's a great house. It's a beautiful house. But even if you put hollow core doors in that house and really cheapened it up, and you know, not that we would do that, but can you, and the second one was attempted by Rodney weight, and it didn't go into the $200,000 mark as well. What does a $150,000 house look like? Well, it's going to look more like a box, sort of, with a roof, a bathroom or two, and 2 or 3 bedrooms. I mean, we need those kind of homes here as well. Doesn't mean they have to be ugly. They could be designed simply and elegantly, but we need things that will allow families, Midwestern young families, to come and live here, not only to buy a house here, but once they're here, to be able to afford to live here and have the services that they need as well. And I would challenge all of us, because I look across the room and I recognize a lot of us, someone's pointed out that we're getting older, we're economically a little bit more stable, we have great taste and we love great things and so forth, but let's not forget, part of what we're talking about is this balance of making the community livable for the average person.
Anyone else? Yes, Chad Rose.
The first question that went to Dr. Beebe. Dr. Beebe is on the board of the Center for Communal Studies at the University of Southern Indiana, and I wondered if he would speak something to the new minor that we are implementing at the university in communal studies, and maybe emphasize the collection that Josephine Elliott started back in the 60s and 70s. We now have a communal studies collection in the archives that has thousands of communities that are available to research. We have some of their prime materials. We have images, thousands of images, and you can access these online. And so he's a wealth of information about this. And for Fred Frazier, I'm wondering how we can do more to tie the Working Men's Institute in. I know there are lectures and so forth, and Rokicki is doing great things there that make these presentations possible.
Well, all I'll add to, Don knows more about it than I do, even though he's retired, but we do have a communal studies minor at USI, and the hope is that if that takes off, we'll turn it into a major, because there's a lot of interest from students, from scholars, from librarians and others in communal studies. If you look across the country, that's what a lot of people want. They want to, someone mentioned about leaving cities and moving to rural areas. Well, people are looking for not just rural or suburban or whatever it is, they're looking for community. And, communal studies is not about utopian histories only, it's about living communal societies today. So we have one of the largest collections in the United States of communal studies archival holdings at USI. So there's a lot of opportunities for that relationship again with New Harmony. It's a living laboratory, if you want to call it that. So there's a lot of things that can happen, Don, so thanks for bringing that up. Another, people are looking for those communities today. So a great example for New Harmony could be to talk about, a retreat center for people that are involved in any kind of spiritual work. There are places on the West Coast, in Washington State, where people spend whole weeks staying in a community on a retreat. Now, I don't know if we do that in New Harmony, I'm not telling you what to do, but that's an option that you can do. And because of the communal aspect and because of the utopian history, it's a natural place that would attract visitors. Because an important part of the culture of town is that you do have people coming to visit the town. You have a community that's vibrant, but you have also people that come so that you have that, not just the sabbatical place, but people coming all the time, because that enriches the place. And that has challenges, of course. So that's what I would say.
May I add to that? We have a researcher on the West Coast named Don Jansen, and he has been finding online that everything now is calling itself an intentional community. And this is from groups like Taylor University now calls itself an intentional community. There are all sorts of camp organizations and nudist camps. There are.
Sometimes that's unintentional.
But actually, hundreds of groups that look apart are calling themselves intentional communities now. And of course, sustainable living is one of the major contributions of the more current community.
Well, folks, this is just the start.
One
One
May I
more.
answer
Brad?
his question on behalf of WMI?
What's that?
May I answer Dr. Pitzer's
Sure.
question on behalf of WMI?
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Pitzer. As you know, we've spent most of the last 5 years dreaming, planning, hoping to do just the types of things that we're hearing here this evening. We have 56,000 square feet of empty space sitting down there going to waste. We worked very closely with Dr. Rapp and Jeremy on a number of the things that were mentioned. We talked about studio space being available. We've talked about the farm to table program. We've talked about maker spaces. Maker spaces seem to be very important because just starting out, you can't afford all that equipment that you need to do the various things that you might want to do, whether you're a sculptor or whether you're a potter or whatever it may be. That space is still sitting there. We know the interest is there. It's just a matter of putting some funding together to make it happen. Also know that that space, that 56,000 square feet of empty space, sits on 30 acres. How nice to build a community house number 2 there as a dorm space for USI students to take part in those programs. And the design of the program was that hopefully, as part of the education process, the students would have hands-on opportunities to develop a small business right there in the building and hopefully grow to be successful enough to move their business downtown. We also hoped that those working with the Food to Table program would become well acquainted with the plants that we want to keep in our community and that they would help with gardening in public spaces as part of their project. We had even talked with the FHA groups in the county about giving them class credit in the learning process as well. So there are a number of opportunities for WMI. We're still looking. I personally still very much so believe in that concept for that 56,000 square feet of space. And hopefully we can start working with Eric Arnberg, as he now owns the building, and help him develop something, whether it looks like that or what. That's a perfect opportunity for New Harmony to grow in those areas.
I think that's a great way to end our panel discussion. It is just the first night. We hope you'll come back. Don't forget tomorrow, the speaker series will begin, and you have some of the top minds of art and architecture in the country coming. You also have an outstanding keynote speaker, Carla Britton, right from Yale University, and that the series will start tomorrow at 2, and tomorrow night's panel, or discussion rather, is free to the public. So, as they say, spread the gospel and bring as many people if you can. And of course, you have the gala later in the week. But right now, how about a hand for our distinguished great job. And something too, congratulations to you. Somebody mentioned that there's a wealth of knowledge in this wonderful facility right now. And the lives and the number of people and organizations that you contact. You are envied, as I said before. New Harmony is a very special place. And it's because of people like you, your loved ones, and all the other people that you know and that you've helped bring to this community. And thanks to those of you who have come back. And again, there's challenges in this crazy world of ours, but it's, let's think of it this way, it's the best of times. And the best of New Harmony is yet to come. Folks, thank you, and have a great night, and please come back sometime over the weekend. Thank you.
And one more thing. I can only imagine the amount of time that was put in developing this and the activities of the weekend. How about a great hand for Dan Mason?
You got it.